Why is it that there are people who are running multi-billion-dollar companies, and yet there are other people who live paycheck to paycheck? What is the difference? What differentiates them? What is one is doing so well while the other cannot do even a fraction of that? There is one thing, and that's in our thinking. You see, as human beings, we continue to think smaller and smaller. And as long as you will continue that particular trait, that particular thinking, you cannot be on the other side. Hi, welcome to The Growth Gap. I'm Aslam Khatri. So today we're talking about the principles of how to aim high in your life. You see, it's not your circumstances, it's not your resources, it's not your skill, but truly it is your mindset. It is your mindset that dictates as to what you are going to do in your life and where are you going to be. Because unless and until you yourself in your own mind decide that where you want or how high you want to aim, it is useless. You see, we live in this world. Today, we live in the world of abundance, where everything is available, where things have gone so far, but things have done so beautiful, where we have seen so much growth, so much innovation that even our grandparents never even imagined. But today we are there. We're living in that world, living in that fast world. But at the same time, so you see, we have so many opportunities, but then at the same time, we also live in a world where we are bombarded on a daily basis from our parents, from our teachers, from our school, from whoever. And that is always be careful. Don't do this. That the wealth is evil, that you don't need money to live, that you only need is good health, and on and on. And we are consistently and constantly told that money is evil, that you shouldn't be. So what happens is you live in that fear, the fear that they show you in terms of wisdom. But truly that's not wisdom. And those who tell you, it's not because they are trying to scare you, not because they want to tell you, they want to discourage you. It's just that that's how they were taught. So those who lived that life will continue to tell you to be careful, not to grow. And then you basically take that for granted, and that becomes your mediocrity, and that's where you live. So how do you change that? What is it that it takes? But before we do that, I'll tell you a story of my own life. While all these things were going on in my country, and everybody was telling me as to how I was born for the pittance, or I should be living a very, very, very low life, because that's what should be as a conservative person. But at the same time, I had a father who kept on blasting. His message was very simple, and it was soar like an eagle. Make your own destiny. Go out and do whatever you need to do. He would always tell me, and he would scream. He would say, failures are the pillars of success. Go try it. And he says, if you try it, you're going to do certain things. So I lived in those two words, where one side, where from the general public I kept on hearing as to how difficult it would be for me to grow. And yet I had somebody who kept on telling me, grow and grow faster. So when I came to Canada, and this is my personal story, is when I came to Canada, I got married. We were still at a poverty line. We were both, my wife and I were going to school, but we wanted to buy ourselves a starter home, a small townhouse, and I needed $18,000. My mortgage was rejected. Now, instead of taking that rejection as acceptance, what I decided to do is I doubled down. I first learned how a mortgage is given, what is the circumstances that will afford me a mortgage. And once I knew that, I went out and I applied for a $40,000 house, to buy a house for $40,000. And within 90 days from the first rejection, I was able to go out and buy myself a house of $40,000. It was all in the thinking. It was all because I took that failure, I took that rejection as a chance to learn and see what that is going to give me. So you see, we can change our own circumstances. Now, what do I mean by aiming high? What I mean by aiming high is that, say you are looking to earn $1 million this year. Say that's your goal. Now my question to you is, why not 5 million? Why not 3 million? Why not 5 million? Why not 7 million? Why not 10 times? What is the difference? The difference is, in my opinion, that if you are going to stick to that goal of $1 million, you become complacent. Take a goal of $1 million for 1 year and you break it down in 4 quarters and it's $250,000 per quarter. Now, just think about it. Once you start measuring that you are accomplishing that 250 for the first quarter, somehow or the other we become complacent. Somehow or the other we start thinking, great, I'm achieving my goal. But if that goal was higher, and if your goal was 5 million, now you're going to hustle, because that's where the difference will come in. And even if you hustled and you worked hard, and even if you failed at that number 5, say you earned 3.5 million instead of 1 million, instead of 5 million. Now, that's not a failure. That's your starting was 1 million. Now you've done 3.5 times. So I have always felt that there is something to say about as to where we are, we can do better. And we can continue to do better on a consistent basis. So what are the principles? You see, what are the principles that make us do that? And because society has always dressed it as you're not accomplishable. But then there's guys on the other side who have done it. Who are they? So what is their principles? What is that they are doing? What is it that they are doing that can help us? So here are the psychological points. Your brains believe whatever you tell it. Whatever you tell it to your brain in good faith. In other words, it does not judge. It takes your words at par. If you tell it that you are limited in circumstances, it will lead you to that limitation. If you tell it that you wish to do much better than what you're doing right now, it will find you the ways to do that, because that's where the neural pathways open, and the science has proven it. So, when you aim high, you create that mental capacity, you create that mental exuberance, you create that mental that you are going to be somebody, that you are going to do something much bigger than where you are now. You see, aiming high always attracts better opportunities, great opportunities, and you will continue to do that. So if those are the three psychological things, just thinking about it, just making up your mind, once you have done so, just making up your mind will give you that particular authority that'll open up the doors for you. Now, here are some practical strategies for aiming higher. One is doubling effect. New pathways continue to open. When you start thinking in double and triple, because the question is very simple. You are making your budget and you're saying that I'm going to make $100,000, $1 million. Why not 2? Why not 4? Why not 5? What is the difference? It's a number. Now you're starting to think higher and higher and higher. What does that do? Is that opens up the opportunities for you. The second thing is, even a lot of people live within their circumstances and they say, my circumstances are that I cannot earn more than this, therefore I'm going to live in this particular situation. And yet, if we look at it, if we reverse engineer it and look at it from the point of view that for me to live a beautiful life, for me to live a great life, I require more than what I am making right now. That is reverse engineering. All of a sudden now you're starting to think that for me to live a good life, I need $250,000. Yet my paycheck is only $100,000. Once you have reverse engineered it, once you know that that's the number you want to, you start thinking about that number. And trust me, once you start thinking about that number, you will go looking for it. So always reverse engineer where you want to be from where you are. I talked about my father and I talked about how people around me, other than my father, were consistently talking about why one should not go after bigger dreams. And I call that eagles and the chicken. My father always said, go soar like an eagle, while the society was telling me, chicken out, you are good where you are. So you see, question is, who do you work with? Who do you listen to? And what is your social gathering? What is your social situation? If you will continue to work and listen and go around with chickens, then that's where your situation is going to be. But if you worked, if you lived, and if you thought like eagles, then you are going to be eagles. So there is this eagle and chicken situation, and this is something that you have to decide. Because it's there, both of them are there. You have to decide as to what you're going to do with that. Now, reframing your failures. I did that with my first mortgage. I had two choices at that point. When I was rejected for that starter home for $18,000, I had two choices. One choice was just to accept it and walk away. And the second one was to reframe. I wanted to know why. Because think about it as a human being, as a semi-intelligent or intelligent human being. I go out because I know that I believe I can afford it. So if I can afford that, why was I rejected? What was the reason? What I found out is that I hadn't presented my situation properly, because I was in a situation where I was going to university, where I was also working, but there was one, and then there was a lot of work that I did on the side. meaning that I did all kind of little jobs for my customers. So once I find out what the criteria were, and I start putting down and jotting down all my income, whatever my professional income was, properly, instead of just walking in saying I have a salary because this is why I was refused. So we need to reframe. We need to reframe whatever the failures are. Okay? Then there is this idea of setting up minimum, maximum, and acceptable. Because it's numbers. It's numbers as to where you want to be. My minimum this year, like I said, you want to bring in $1 million. That's your minimum. Let the maximum be 10 million. Why not? 10 times. And then you would settle for 5 million. You settle for 3.5 million. Because now automatically what you've done is you have increased your own mindset. In your own mindset, you have increased as to where you are going to take that. Then you have to think in systems, not just in goals. What do I mean by that? It's a very simple thing. Once you have aimed for something, once you have aimed high, now look around. That's your system. Look around and see who has done or accomplished what is that you want. If you want to do something, there are other people who have done it. Now follow them. See what they do. What have they done to accomplish where they want to be? So, you see, these are simple rules that if you just followed it, and if you just worked it, and I really hope that you can jot these down, because that's what it is. That's what it requires for you to aim higher. There's this scarcity mindset, the scarcity psychology, where many times we feel in our life that there may not be enough to go around. We're always worried about that. We're always worried that there may not be enough. But trust me, there's just so much to go around. There's just so much to do. There's such abundance, as I said, in our life. There's just so much available that we can go out and get it. That is available for everybody. And when you get it, then you can help your fellow human beings with that. So there's abundance. It's not scarcity. Do not be of that mindset that it is so scared. How am I going to do it? Or what I'm going to do? Then there's the fear of disappointment. Now, what is the fear of disappointment? That I may not accomplish my goal. So, $1 million versus $5 million. What would you like? Would you like to be disappointed not to have done 5 million, but done 3.5 million, than to have a mediocre result? See, sometimes we don't think that way, because there's going to be disappointments if you don't do it. But if your goal from 1 million was to 5 million and you did 3.5 million, then you accomplished much more. Even though you failed not to do 5 million, you accomplished much more than that 1 million. That was the mediocre goal that you had. See, then there's always this question of, who am I to think high? You see, there's an expression, and where I come from is, they say, you were born for a little bread. And that expression goes around quite often. And that is the mentality that gives you the thinking. So who am I to be thinking that I wish to become a multimillionaire? You need to change that mindset. You should be asking yourself a question, who am I not to think that way? Why not? Why can't I think that way and become that multimillionaire, become aiming that high where I want to be, doing things that I want to do? You see? So it's all in your own mind. It's all in your mentality. Now, what I've done is here is I got a few points where you can start following, taking some actions. Number one is write down your biggest current goal. What is your goal? What is it you wanted to do? And find out how are you going to change that. Because once you write that down, it makes it easier for you. Go out and find out how can you change that particular goal today. Apply the doubling factor on it and get that one done. See? Then identify one area where you're trying to play very safe. You're playing with the chickens. And ask yourself a question. What would be if you soared like an eagle in that particular? Just again, it's all in our own mind. Once we start looking at it, once we start thinking about it, and perhaps you may listen to me today and say, all right, I'll do it some other day. But if that idea, if you keep that in your mind, that idea that you keep on thinking that yes, it is for you also. That yes, you can do a lot of great things. So keep that in the mind. Keep in the mind, go back to this podcast and think about it. The more you think, the more you will feel that the things are opening up for you. See, find one ego. I'm sure you know people that you are thinking of as to how these people were able to achieve what they're achieving in their life. Find that one ego. Follow that ego. Think about it. My father sometimes would go crazy on these tangents where he'll talk about, and he will go on and he will say, they have 5 fingers, they have 2 ears, and he will go on and on. But that's such a truth. Sometimes we don't realize that. It's all in our mind because we're all equal, same human beings, unless you are a special requirement person. That's a different story. But people who want to be in the business, people who are working, people who are doing things, we're all the same. So why not follow this ego? See what they do. And how can I emulate that person so that I too can soar like an eagle? You know? And then one more thing is that to eliminate that chicken in your life. Eliminate the source that is consistently telling you that no, you're not capable. Eliminate it. It could be a newspaper that you receive. It could be a podcast. It could be anything that's telling you that you're not capable. Eliminate it out of your life. And you will find that alone will help you. So you see, these are the practical tips. Once you start following, this is how you take your action. And once you start taking that action, it'll help you go forward in aiming higher. I've always believed that us as human beings, we're able to do so much. Sometimes you have to think about in the way of being unreasonable. You see, when you are reasonable, you just trot along and you do certain things that are just expected of you, and you continue to do it. But when you have unreasonable demands on you, for the people, those people who created aeroplanes, who invented aeroplanes, those people who went to the moon, and on, all the great things that have happened in our life, these were unreasonable people, because they continued to go after that particular dream. They continued to go after that particular thought that they had in their mind. They particularly to go after that aiming high, and they wanted to do something. And what a great gift they left to the humanity. Everything that we see today. There was some person who was unreasonable, who said, you know what, I am going to do that. And that shows that as to how capable us human beings are. And that's to how, when we aim, we can do such great things. And yes, those who tell us not to do it, or those who scare us because they're scared themselves, and it's very understandable, and their situation is very understandable. But we need to work on our own, with our own, and for our own selves. We need to do it. We need to empower ourselves. And that's how we aim high, and we continue to aim high. So, I hope I was able to bring something in. Keep your mind to that. Think about it. Maybe not today, maybe in 2 days, maybe in 2 months. It'll come, because you need to understand to aim high. And here's the one thing that I give you as a challenge. Take a little thing, small thing. Aim high on that. And see the results. You'll be surprised, because you would want to do that with all the other stuff. So become unreasonable with yourself. Now, if you think somebody who needs to hear this, please forward it to them. Please send me any comments that you wish to make. And please subscribe to my channel. Till next time, I'm Aslam Khatri. See you soon.